Diablo 4 just had its brand new patch notes released. We also have some BlizzCon news as well as what's happening next for Diablo 4. And is Diablo 4 going free to play? And a whole bunch more. What's up, World Stripper? Back in the video, checking out all things Diablo 4. Okay, so let's jump right into the actual patch notes for 1.2.1. But before we do, if you need tools to properly build out your character, as well as check out certain statistics, and even compare and contrast, then be sure to check out today's video sponsor.
Mobalytics is an insanely intuitive and innovative app that lets you deep dive into an incredible amount of useful tools for all your build creation needs. And this free application, and yes, you heard me right, it is completely free. This app has helped me so much with my build creations and comparing and contrasting different statistics. I was able to find incredibly interesting and different unique builds compared to mine, and even got to try out Crip's ultimate fire sword. I love being able to glance over at my stat priorities and build priorities just right within the game. And the new highly anticipated build planner is available now to use directly in-app. And this allows me to completely redefine my build and plan out new strategies without having to use any of my precious gold. Again, you can download for free using my link down below. Thank you again to Mobalytics for sponsoring this video. Now, first preface that this build is not actually going live until October 31st for all platforms, which is typical for most Blizzard games, or Blizzard maintenance is always on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Now, one of the biggest news is that they're adding a training dummy, which for most people, I think including myself, have been using Lilith as a training dummy, since she's so easily accessible and she's kind of a boss that you can tell your damage on and kind of compare and contrast how fast you can take her down. But yes, now the training dummy is being added and will be located in an underground room. The entrance can be found in Kyovashad. The training room will consist of a stash and a training dummy, and the players can choose between attacking training dummy or a small group of them. And additionally, they can choose whether each training dummy is normal, elite, or a boss difficulty. I am a bit torn on a DPS meter, as that's normally why you want a target dummy, or at least kind of checking how fast you're able to damage something, or even the damage numbers. However, especially for like ball lightning and stuff, it's really kind of hard to tell what your damage is because you're getting thrown so many numbers. So I normally shadow play and kind of check the ranges of my numbers overall. I do the same thing for a few other games like New World, etc. to kind of check how much my damage is changing comparative to what stats I'm placing in. It's not exactly as accurate as a DPS meter. However, I'm a bit torn if that should be in the game, and if they should have a DPS meter, though, probably so. But I do understand why people don't like the DPS meter, because it does kind of fester a toxic culture. Final Fantasy XIV, comparative to WoW in that sense, was a lot more easygoing. However, it would be nice to know exactly how my damage is doing. They're also doing some improvements for Season of Blood. Blood wells will not drop more piles of potent blood, slightly increasing the total average. And the new change is that 8 piles will now drop 5 to 9 each of those. So this looks like it can range significantly higher, and where it will essentially just be scattered out in piles instead of all collected together. Seems to be more reminiscent of how cinders are dropping, or how the cinders only drop one at a time instead of stacking them all together. Definitely a decent change. Blood Harvest, I get people like it and they think it's fun, but I don't find it very fun and think it's kind of monotonous. So at least the vampiric powers are a bit easier to level, although I have like 2,000 or 3,000 potent blood and most of my stuff is maxed. An example would be Metamorphosis. I accidentally leveled it to 2, and with the max roll guide as well as other suggestions, you probably should not level your Metamorphosis skill, especially if you are a sorcerer. You're going to get unbreakables much faster and faster regen for your actual resource if you're using the Tybalt's Will. Just a little neat trick there that you probably should not level your Metamorphosis, although mine's already level 2, so yeah, I did make the mistake as well. They also added some additional information to the actual vampiric power screen. I still wish they would fix that whole UI there. It is insanely terrible, reminiscent of like a mobile UI. I'm really not sure why they make you go through each thing and spend like 20 minutes to level your vampiric powers. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but if they are trying to increase that engagement metric, they are definitely accomplishing that. They've also decreased the search area for all whispers that require the player to find a specific monster, which I definitely noticed that they were like wildly different ranges. Sometimes I just kind of skipped out on those, so I'm glad that's been fixed at least, or made it easier to find those as well. There was some dungeon and event issues that seemingly had been fixed, along with some resets that could occur just by leaving the area. They also fixed a major issue with shrine buffs that would not apply when actively mounted. Seems like they also had some boss fixes, especially with Varshan, who would stop attacking if his path was in the center of the arena and was obstructed. But kind of some cheesy stuff there. However, Varshan's already pretty easy.
It also looks like Temerity had a major bug that would only apply its overheal barrier at full health instead of including excess healing when a source of healing would take the player beyond the full health. So essentially the pants weren't working at all unless you were actually at full health. So yeah, that's a definite major fix there for those pants. They also made Ice Beast a little bit harder as some players were not taking any damage in a specific area. And yeah, I think the Ice Boss is actually the most difficult compared to Duriel, although Duriel does take a little bit longer to take down. There were some major quest fixes, but they're mostly pertaining to progression fixes and kind of getting stuck or NPCs not following certain paths. There was a ton of Season of Blood fixes that essentially come down to patchwork and issues that were coordinating with certain vampiric powers. One of the major ones being Scroll of Amnesia would not go to the Lost Stash if left on the ground and the player left the area. So a major fix there for some hardcore players that were leaving those on the ground. If you're a sorcerer who uses Oculus with Metamorphosis, there was a major bug with that. While they both were equipped, they would result in the teleport evade charges not renewing properly. So if you've been having issues there with that, those combinations, that should be fixed. Another major one, which actually pertains to me, is Flicker Step Affix would occasionally not activate when using Metamorphosis. So if you are a Ball Lightning sorcerer with the evade charge stuff and the ultimate, you should actually get those procs sooner and your ultimate should go on cooldown faster. There was a ton of UI fixes and user experience fixes, but nothing crazy major, a lot of local co-op stuff. Also some tooltip fixes as well as some kind of text fixes. And they also did nerf Helltides a bit here. Which one of these being, I just don't understand why, because Blood Harvest doesn't do it. They fixed an issue where cinders would not reset once a Helltide ended. Realistically, there is no reason why your cinders should be reset once the Helltide ends. They only happen every so often, you have to wait a long time for them already. And half the time you're going to have uneven numbers at the end, and so you're just going around spending it on random chests when you're really just there for living steel. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like this change. I really wish they would just have it like Blood Harvest where you kept your cinders into the next round or the next sub-spawn. They also made it so that the gift of living steel was 280 and displayed at 300, which I had a commenter from my previous video let me know that that was actually the case, that you could get them for 280 points instead of the 300. I had no idea on that, but now it actually does cost 300. So instead of just being in favor of the players and making it 280, they made it 300. I guess not a major ordeal there, but yeah, I don't know. Some of this stuff just needs to be nerfed and easier to get. Of course, they also ended a note here with various performance instability and visual fixes, but the patch note portion, that should about cover it for 1.2.1. There probably will be a few other fixes that they add in later, or even some edits that they put in here later. There was also quite a major issue here with a dev note next to it, where the Reigns of the Bloody Liquid Steed mount cosmetic was not rewarded for defeating Echo of Lilith. They did add a note here for those players that did end up defeating Echo of Lilith and not getting the mount, that with patch 1.2.1, players will receive that upon logging in. I'm definitely glad for that fix there, as it is quite a major one. It's a big reward for downing a decent boss. However, she's much easier than she was on launch, but still. Now, is Diablo going free to play? What do we see on that front? We've already had some major 25% off sales and some sales right after launch. However, it does look like now until October 30th, Diablo 4 is having a free trial. There's also been that limited time offer for 25% off the normal price. However, this free trial will only allow you to reach level 20, which I think is a little unfortunate. I think they should have pushed that to maybe 40 or level 50, as I just don't think level 20 is enough to hook a player in. I get that World of Warcraft does that, but World of Warcraft does that with the level cap being at 60. However, yeah, it went to 120 at one point. But I do think with Diablo going up to level 100, I think a level 40 or 30 free trial would have been a lot more baseline and would have been a lot better to hook players in, as they would have just been getting started toward the end game. We also do have BlizzCon happening right around the corner, which is on November 4th on Saturday. But following BlizzCon, we're also going to get a campfire chat from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. PDT. There will be a Diablo 4 campfire chat, which will feature Joe Shelley again, of course, Associate Game Director Brent Gibson, Production Director Tiffany Watt, and Lead Producer Kaylor Calder, as well as always the Associate Director of Community Adam Fletcher. Cool to see some new faces here and some new people in. Hopefully we can get some more ideas around the backing of how Diablo is going to go in the future. It's definitely nice to have some new voices out there and kind of get what the kind of background mentality of this game actually is. Now, on the first day of BlizzCon, attendees will be able to drop questions into the box located in the Diablo section at BlizzCon, and those are actually the questions that they will be answering, as well as the ones via sent social media. Overall, we'll have to see how all this goes. I'm not a big fan of the Helltide changes and the kind of quote-unquote nerfs to them. I get they weren't exactly nerfed, but a few of the changes, yeah, I just wish they would make Helltides carry over with the Cinder. Overall, that should about cover for today's video. If you like and subscribe, and until the next one, deuces.